Hey, this is Soma79 with a special announcement. My new Mega Mix is up. My MF Doom Mega Mix, Oxidation Moons Day, is now available. Go to www.soma79.com/doom to check it out. It's a 30-minute mix that I did of MF Doom raps over my own beats. I really enjoy it. I hope you really enjoy it. So check it out. Tell a friend. Peace. Hey, welcome to the newest episode of the Articulate Ox podcast. I am your host, Soma79. Thank you so much for joining me today. My guest is Wordburglar. This dude is the best. He's an MC. He's been around for years. I was a fan of his back in the day, and then he sort of fell off my radar, and I was so pleasantly surprised to sort of rediscover him again and find all this awesome music that I hadn't heard. He's got a style that is truly all his own, and I say that, but when I talked to him, I kind of felt like I was talking to a dude that was very similar to me. So I don't know. I kind of wish this dude lived down the block from me, because I feel like we could have all sorts of nerdy conversations. We probably could have gone on for hours on this one, but I was already a fan of him going in, and I was a much bigger fan going out. He's a really nice, awesome, earnest human being. And he's also amazingly talented. It's great. It's like, it's funny. When I was talking to him, I was kind of falling into this lull of just like chatting about nothing. Then to remind myself, oh my God, this guy is Wordburglar. Like, he is truly a really top tier MC. So with a sound all of his own. So go check it out, and go on Bandcamp and order some Wordburglar stuff yourself. So thank you so much, man, for joining us. Wordburglar, you're the man. Appreciate it. And while you're checking stuff out, maybe check out my EP with Pillsy Beats, Quiet Life Loud Friends, available everywhere. You can get it. You can download it for free at my website, soma79.com. /Quiet Life Loud Friends, all one word, featuring copyright Jay Sinatra, Wordplay the Flyest MC, and Honest the Grease God. Really like this EP. I'm so happy with the reaction I've gotten so far. And the bonus track, I Don't Know You But I Hate You, should be available now everywhere on streaming services, and also as part of the download website. And while you're checking out stuff, Oxidation Moons Day, my MF Doom 30-minute mega mix, is also available on YouTube and for free download on my website at soma79.com/doom. So that is it. Thank you so much, and thank you very much, Wordburglar, for being here for this conversation. Peace. That's just Meet Ann with wings clipped, quick to flip manuscripts, cause her man went from damaged kid to damn he's rich, but she still can't stand the way he manages to never put nickels in the can for the cancer kids. Plus he cheats at cornhole and brags that he won, so she lost interest like porno after she comes. My DM started jingling, baby, as it was done. 2 seconds later I can hear the snapping of her gums. She calls me half Dodge Challenger, half Lip Gallagher. All right, my guest today in the newest episode of the Articulate Ox podcast. Lock up your nouns, hide your verbs. The Wordburglar is here. What's going on today, man?
Yo, those are some good words. I'm gonna burgle that. I'll burgle those. Yeah, just chilling. Good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, thanks for being here. We were chatting a little bit before, and so I was aware of you from years back. I've been, doing like indie rap for like 20 plus years, and you were definitely on my radar back in the day with Burglaritis, that freaking jam.
Yo, crazy. Cool,
yeah,
cool.
and then the way I found you is, so I recently did a song with Esoteric from Czarface, and I was trying to figure out how to tag him on Spotify to get like the best release radar stuff. I'm like, if I do Czarface, I feel like I'm stepping over a little bit, and I was like, oh, Wordburglar, you did a song with Czarface with Esoteric, and I was like, damn. Then I fell right down that wormhole and forgot about the rest of it until now.
Dope, man. Yeah. No, Esso's the best, and it's just insane. What's happening with Czarface is just so fresh, and it's so good to see. I remember when I first heard them do Speaking Real Words back on. Actually, weirdly, you mentioned Esso. I was cleaning up today, and I don't know if you can see that.
Purpose.
There you go. Yeah, that's an old school CD.
They're our hometown. I mean, I'm from Boston. They're from Boston. It's like,
oh yeah,
I've been going to see them since like. I remember seeing them at like the BU Boston University basement show, and there was like maybe 15 people there. And then it was 7L Esoteric. This was way before Czarface, and it's like then I'd see them the
Yeah.
next night, and the place would be sold out. It was just like they were just still figuring it out. But like it's amazing what they're doing now. Just signing the Virgin. I mean, it's like, and that dude is like,
Yo,
there's not anybody who has a bad word to say about him. It's he's the nicest guy on the planet. So.
yo, he's the best. I just did the Celtics opener, which was
Yes.
crazy. And yeah, I first heard him on that it was a 12-inch, or maybe it was like a vinyl EP. I think it had like 3 or 4 songs on each side. It was called The Rebel Alliance.
Yep.
And so that would have been like late 90s, I think. It was around the same time, like all that underground, like the stuff that really inspired me was like Company Flow, all the like lyricist lounge stuff coming out of New York,
Yeah.
and yeah, and then hearing the stuff from Boston and SO. And what's dope, we won't do the whole podcast about how much we love Esoteric, but I
This
love that,
happens
like,
a lot on this podcast. Actually, his name gets brought up a lot.
yeah, but he's doing exactly what he started doing. He's just
Right.
obviously doing it at like such an insanely higher level. Like he's just like he
Yeah.
never really changed up, he stayed esoteric. Like if you go back and listen to like SO from 20 years ago, it's like that's
Yeah.
esoteric. He's
Same
just like
thing.
continued to just evolve and grow, and like where some
Yeah.
people change their styles or fall off after 20 years. And Inspector Deck, same way. Like I just
Yeah.
saw Wu-Tang in Toronto, and he was there. It was amazing. They had like everybody was there. It was crazy. And like Capadonna was there. They had like 9 of them doing Triumph.
Oh,
And Young Dirty Bastard was there filling in for
yeah.
ODB.
I just did a
And
song with him. He's great
oh,
too.
crazy.
Yeah, I got a
Yo,
song with
that's
him in Raz Cass and Elza coming out on my next
oh,
album. But yeah, he's
dope,
amazing.
dude.
Young Dirty
Yo.
Bastard is really dope. Like he's
Yeah.
I went and listened to a bunch of his, I just dug out a bunch of his like solo stuff, and I was like, this is good shit. Like I hope he keeps like releasing stuff. And this second generation Wu is a totally slept on album too. Like all the
Yeah,
Wu
I don't think I
kids.
ever heard the whole album. I remember I heard this, there was a single
Yeah, it's
before the
dope.
album came out, and it was dope. And yeah, I mean, obviously big Wu-Tang fan. And
Well, it's
anyways,
funny.
Deck was like rapping, and he was like he came up there and he was so sharp. And it was like, yeah, like obviously Czarface has kept him sharp and he's stayed sharp, but
Yeah.
like he doesn't phone it in on the Czarface
No.
records. Like he's like Deck is like just like killing it every record. Like I get so hyped. It's just good to see those guys just crushing.
It's fun. It's sort of like I'm not like I like know Esoteric a little. I'm not friends with them or anything, but him from the going to shows and stuff. And it's like you have to imagine that Inspector Deck is probably so excited to be like working with some of the nicest, easiest people to work with, because it's like you watch these Wu-Tang documentaries and they're all like at each other's throat all the time. It's like I can't imagine how easy it must feel for him to work with those guys.
Yeah, it's
It's
weird. I
like a
was
day
watching
in the
that
park.
there's a Woo doc.
There was the
Was it
Mike,
the
Mike
Mice
and
and
Men.
Men
Yeah,
or
that was
Mike?
like the four
Yeah.
apps on the Showtime one. That's excellent. It's really good.
It was really good. So here's something I don't know if you picked up on. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's crazy. Like there's a scene where I think Ghost and Meth and 1 or 2 other guys are chilling in the theater, and one of them is like freestyling. And I think Meth says something like utter. Like
Yeah,
that's kind of like a freestyle. And they all like go get hyped. They're like, oh yo.
yeah.
But then like Ghost came out with a jam and he says utter. And so I don't know if that's like a thing they were all doing,
I
or
don't
like if
know.
he like burgled that from Meth.
Well,
Like,
I actually think I remember that, and I think he did a freestyle with Black Thought on I don't think it was Funk Flex, but it was one of those shows, and I think he did it there too. So I
mhm.
think I've seen Meth do it in more than one place.
Yeah, I'm sure Ghost is like it's all like in the,
Yeah,
like in our crew. Like I'm in a crew here of dudes who've all been rapping together for forever, a million years, and like there's so many like little sayings that we have that
yeah.
people will say on different tracks, and like we don't know who coined it originally. We just all say it. People are like, yo, remember when you said that? I'm like, well, I think like my boy Timbuktu actually said that first. And we say like out the napkin, which is like a weird throwback to a compilation we were on, and this group had a song called Out the Napkin, and they were called the Tuning Spork, and it was super dope. And they just called the track Out the Napkin, but there was no explanation. So we just kind of had to like figure out like what that meant. And Out the Napkin was like we interpreted it as Like, when you go to a fancy restaurant and your utensils are wrapped up in a napkin,
Yeah.
and then you take them out of the napkin to
Yeah.
eat,
Out the napkin.
they never go back.
Yeah. I know.
They're out the
Who knows how
napkin.
they got there in the first
So
place?
yeah, so when parties were getting crazy, we'd be like, "Yo, this party's out the
The
napkin."
napkin.
Like it was just, anyways, like just stuff like that, right? And just becomes part of our crew, your crew saying. So,
Yeah.
anyways, we're going all over the place.
Yeah. Hey, that's the point,
Yeah,
Hey, no real
yeah.
agenda. Though it was funny when I was listening to your stuff, it's you have a very unique voice. You fit you I don't know, it's nerdcore. Nerdcore doesn't really feel like what it is. Like that's what I think Wikipedia tried to call it. I don't know if that's really what we're talking about here.
Everybody tries to call it that,
Yeah. It didn't
and
really
I'm
make sense to
happy.
me. But like
Yeah,
the point that I was trying to get is like, so when I was a kid, I remember seeing the No Nose Job video by Digital Underground, and that blew my mind. So everything I'd heard about rap before was like NWA or Beast. It was stuff that felt like it was like these were people that were just way different from me. But when I saw like Shock G and Humpty Hump, like obviously same guy doing the stuff, that's when for me it felt like hip hop was something that I could do. And so when I listened to your style, I was wondering, do you have any sort of similar thing like that? Like what was your pathway into being rap, like, because I'm guessing we're coming up around the same time. It was an intimidating scene. How did you find your way in, and how did it feel home for you?
absolutely, man. It was an intimidating scene. That's what people don't really think about. Like I always loved rap. I always just rapped. I would rap along, listen to Public Enemy a lot, LL Cool
Yeah.
J, uh, Run DMC, Young MC, Fresh Prince, like
Yep.
late 80s, early 90s, Rakim, and then like
All that
right
shit.
into like
Yeah.
when all that New York 90s stuff was popping, like Illmatic and Wu-Tang and you name it, Biggie and like
You Rocky
J.
CL
Rue and like
Smooth and
that,
yeah.
oh, like 92
Gangstar.
to 96 is just like out of control. There's so many crazy records. Um, and that was just like hitting me like right as I was like getting into my teens. It was just like I was absorbing it all. But I always just would loved rap, love rhyming and freestyling. And but I never thought like, I'm gonna be a rapper one day. It was not like but it was something I always did. Like I was recording songs with my cousin when I was like in grade 6 because he's a bit older. He had all this gear. He had a 4-track. He would make beats and he'd be like, you love to rap. Like, why don't you get on here? And I just kind of like half freestyle, half scribble little rhymes. Like I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I still have the tapes and they're
Oh
terrible,
yeah,
but
I got some of
it
those
was
too.
like, yeah,
You have a
but it was a
battle with those, I'm
genesis.
sure.
And I just always loved rhyming. And
It is
I
very
love
satisfying.
yeah, yeah, it's very satisfying. And, I've always been a nerd, always loved comics, always been into that. I love baseball. I'm like a sports nerd, and I'm a music nerd, huge rap nerd. Like, as much as I'm nerdy about comic books, I'm nerdy about hip hop.
Yeah.
So, I took it very seriously. And I just always wanted to make sure I sounded like me. Like Chuck D was doing his thing, LL's doing
Right.
his thing. Exactly. Everybody's doing their thing. You're talking about De La. De La was doing their like
Hmm.
everybody's doing their thing. So I always thought like if I'm gonna, you know, be a rapper, like I need to be like confident that what I'm doing doesn't sound like anybody else,
Yeah.
right? Like I love Cool Keith, one of my favorites.
Yep.
There's no
He's on the song that was our favorite. That's with
yeah.
Tarek. Yeah. He's
Oh,
amazing.
dope, dude. Yeah, yeah. I've got a track with him, and I've met him a few times. He's the greatest, man. He's like,
Yeah,
and his
he
new
must be
stuff
wild
now.
with
He did
that.
like 6 or 7 albums this year
Yeah,
already.
I
Like I was
know.
just listening to one that called World Area, and it's hilarious. Like it's dope, and he's dropping so much knowledge on it too, just about like everything, like the stuff he's saying things, and he's like, I like Drake asked me to do this thing, and blah 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 blah. Like there's some lyric about that. I'm like, he's probably making this up
Who knows?
and just like saying it for lyric, but it's entirely possible that
Right.
Drake
I'm
reached
sure
out to Cool
Drake
Keith.
knows who
There's
Cool
no
Keith is. I
exactly
would
right.
expect him to. You know.
Because he had that famous line where he's like, I got 5 grand to do a track with Prodigy or something like that. Or like 50 grand. Like it was some insane rhyme back in like, I don't know, shortly after Dr. Octagon and it came
Yeah.
out. He's like, or 50 grand to do a track with Prodigy. And everyone's like, oh, that's bullshit. And then
That
somebody
means
told him,
I got
like,
a
no,
hell of a
that's
deal.
real. Yeah. He's like, that's like actually real. Like Prodigy gave him 50 grand to do a song or something. I'm probably
Worth every penny. Yeah.
misremembering it, but
I'll
yeah,
have to dig that
yeah.
song up.
But yeah, like look, you're ahead. You get it.
Yeah.
Like to me, I could not put out music until I felt like it was like I didn't. My friends were always encouraging me to rap and freestyle and like keep pushing me. And I rolled, everybody, and like you're saying, like how it was intimidating. Like I remember my high school, like everybody seemed to be into hip hop at my high school, but outside of my high school, people were not into hip hop. Like it was not like in the 90s. Like I remember there was like, and it was weird. Like, I'm a kid from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. And being into rap wasn't like we had a great rap scene. There was an incredible local rap scene there. And I guess that's one more thing I'll just touch on about that. Everyone in the scene that I looked up to, they were all super original. Like they were really like Buck 65, who in a lot of ways
Yes.
was kind of like in a weird way, like he was a mentor, but wasn't a mentor. Like he was older. He had a radio show. I listened to his show every week. He would basically give you an education every week on like from the oldest of the old school, and he'd be playing like I got introduced to like Curtis Blow and all this stuff like really early, and like Nucleus and like the Genesis and all this stuff of like breaks, and it was a real education in hip hop. And he was part of Zulu Nation and was really hardcore into everything, and he worked really hard to present listeners with this really broad spectrum of different rap experiences. So all those, I'm hearing all these amazing singles and all these jams, and that just kept filtering in to me. But obviously he's a totally original MC, crazy talented artist, and he's putting out the best work of his career, I think, right now, which is crazy. Like he's put out 3 albums in the last 2 years, and they're all crazy.
It's wild about how there's right as we're recording this, Andre 3000 just announced he's releasing a new album coming out this Friday, and it's all flute
Yeah.
music, which I'm sure it's going to be dope. But everybody's like, dude, pick up the mic, and he's like, I don't know what the exact reason is, but like what I heard is like people like him and Jay Electronica think they're too old or something, and it's like it's to me, we're seeing some real. This isn't like dunking a basketball. This isn't like throwing a football. Like your brain can get sharper if you keep going, and it's the way to stay active. It's rhyming is great mental exercise.
Fully agree, man. You only get better with age.
Yeah.
That's on Bergonomic, which is an album I put out last year. I have a song called No ETA. And it was kind of that like, oh, when are you gonna make it? Right? It's like I don't know, like I'm doing this. As far as I'm concerned, strangers have heard my music. I've made it. Like I never thought I was gonna be like, blowing up. But people like, yo, you still rapping? Like a bump into people from high school, like, yo, you still, and from all my friends who supported me back then are still in my corner now, which is amazing. And I do feel like what you're saying, like I feel like I'm just getting started. Like I'm like more hype than ever. But definitely when I was a kid, if you're like, yo, you can't make, most rappers, like going back and listening to Nas or something, and you listen to these guys, Mob Deep, and there's like these guys are teenagers, and and they felt so
that blows
old
my
at the
mind
time.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Like when you
it
see
felt
that
so
oldest,
old.
when you watch the oldest footage of Biggie rapping, the stuff on like the street corner, he was killed like 6 years after that. It's wild. Like
It's crazy.
it's
It's crazy.
it's just the amount of time that it's crazy you get that good in that amount of time.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's pretty
Yeah,
wild.
exactly. And but yeah, no, and with all the 50 years of hip hop, I heard somebody being interviewed. I think it was like Redman, and Redman's like, we're sharper than ever.
Yeah, I
Like you
know.
look at these guys, Chuck D, Cool Keith. I mean,
Yeah.
Cool Keith just dropped he's on that 200 rapper. It's like an hour-long song that just
Yeah.
came out. And
I had an idea to
he's
do a
sharper than
79
ever.
rapper song, and then I saw other people already doing it. I'm like, it felt like a lot of work once I saw other people were already doing it.
If you can have the breaks, like if you can break it up somehow, because like that YouTube video I started watching was like an hour long, and it's hype because there's like all these, everybody's in it. Like Mike Geronimo's in it. Like there's a name I
Boy,
haven't
I
heard
haven't
in
heard that
forever.
name forever.
They pull deep, and then they've got like Snoop's on it.
I gotta
Cool
listen.
Keith,
Maybe
like
I'm on it.
yeah. Yeah, actually, yeah, you were.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. Someone Shazammed me from Bermuda the other day, and I want to know so much about that one transaction. Like what? Like I get these like I've been Shazam like 10 times. It's from like all these weird places in the world. I'm like, what was happening in that moment?
Wow. You can do the GPS on that or the
The
geo
app,
track,
yeah, the Apple app
whatever.
shows you, which I'm surprised it does.
Okay.
But like, it's like part of me thinks it's like a bot, but I'm like, is it a bot? Like, but there's two things that have to happen. The song has to be playing, and something has to detect it. So it's like, I'm like, it's weird.
And
So
was it your song or was it
it was my
another
some of my
song?
songs, yeah,
Okay, dope. It real quick back to the esoteric thing. Like
yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about what to tag him as.
yeah,
Because do you tag it because on Spotify, for example, he'll come up as 7L Esoteric
yeah.
or Czarface or whatever. And
And
then
there's
I
other
saw
esoterics out there that sometimes get confused with them.
there's like 5 other esoterics out there. None of them are rappers, I
They're all
don't
like
think,
heavy
but
metal or something. It's
yeah. And
yeah,
so that's confusing. So I'm trying to remember. I did see him appear. So on the record he's on with me, yeah, we bill him as Esoteric of Czarface
yeah.
because at the time I think he had appeared on someone else's album using that
It's funny,
tag.
and that was basically doing the same
Yeah,
thing where I'm looking.
yeah,
I found you trying to figure that out. This is the
yeah,
daisy
yeah.
chain of this.
And then I think
All to
on
avoid me just shooting him an IG message and asking him.
yeah, yeah, and then he's like, just don't tag me in it.
I know that's
That's the fear, right? It's
I
like,
know,
yo, I mean, it's helping us more than
right?
him, even if it helps us. I don't know, but he was so cool and just
Yeah,
um, yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
funny.
He's I've only met him in person once, but he's yeah, we've been in touch over the internet
Yeah,
over for like
they tour
back to
relentlessly.
MySpace days, I think.
Yeah,
So
it's exciting to see that. Like, I feel like right around the time it announced that he was signing to Virgin, I started seeing the records in more places. Like maybe like in like maybe like a Tower Records thing that I wouldn't have seen it in before, or something like that. And then he pops up at the Garden. I'm like, this is cool. That feels like it's really getting started, and there's going to be something cool coming from it. You
that's
know,
great. And what's dope about him is he's one of these guys who, at least I'm interpreting this, it seems like he's keeping like I think he even posted about just we're back to esoteric again,
yeah,
but he posted about just keeping dudes like just because they're signed to Virgin, they're gonna keep working with the same people and keep
yeah,
underground hip hop. Like a lot of times you see these guys blow up and it's like, yo, like what happened to all the people you used to roll with? Like I want to hear them on a
right.
track. And like
No
one
one
thing that
wants to
always
hear
weirded me
like
out was
Future on like a Czarface song. You know,
yeah, I mean I'm sure the label does, but
yeah,
like I like with Eminem, for example, he would always talk about like Masta Ace is one of my favorite rappers ever. And when
yep,
I first heard Eminem, like you could hear it as like
yep,
a
yeah.
as a head, you're like, oh, I can hear a bit
Master
of Masta
Ace,
Ace in
Big
this guy.
L, little Murder Mace.
Like Tretch, maybe
Yeah,
like you can
Dretch.
hear like a lot of
Yes.
this, like
He's got a solo
um
album coming out.
oh wow,
I don't know
dope.
when.
Yeah,
He said
man.
he wanted
Never
Eminem
known
to be the
anybody.
first one to hear it. That's the only reason I know about it. There's an article about that. So that
Oh,
clickbaited
cool,
me.
cool.
But yeah,
Well, that's
I'm
dope.
very excited about
But yeah, to
Trash.
my point, it was like if I'm Eminem and Masta Ace is one of my favorite rappers and I get a major deal,
I
I'm gonna be like calling Masta Ace to be on my record. Like that's like
well,
if I got a
that's
major deal right now, I'd be like calling Nas and I'd be calling like, I'd be like who can I get that I couldn't get before? But then also I want to bring up like the underground dudes that I
right.
think are incredible, right? And like probably working with the same people I'm working with now, of course. But
Right. But
I
even
mean, we
like
all
with
see
them,
it.
like I think about this, like he's got enough money, I'm sure, and he just goes to his basement and he makes his music. It's like if I were in this position, I'd be flying in Cool G Rap to do a song. I'd be flying in Big Daddy. I'd have this album that had every person like Paris, like these people that are just killers that like because I feel like if he
Yeah.
did one album where he did like maybe like 12 songs with artists like that, one or two of them would get big career resurgences out of it. And that would be a lot for hip hop. You know, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying Eminem has to do that for that reason, but I feel like I'd be thinking that way, you know. I'd be like a kid in a
Yeah.
candy store.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're totally right. Yeah, Cool G Rap and Big Daddy Kane put everybody on one track, like one album. Like, yeah, what's Marley Marl doing? I haven't heard anything from Marley Marl in a while. Like, all this 50th hip hop, I probably missed something, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
Speaking
There's like a
of,
lot
so I
that's
have asked this to a few of my other hip hop guests. Considering we are the 50th year of hip hop, any predictions on where we'll be at 100 years of hip hop? One thing that
that's
I think about that
interesting.
is there's a lot of people who like to talk about how hip hop is gone, hip hop's not what it used to be. I think hip hop has infiltrated our culture so much we don't even realize it anymore. I heard like black sheep on like a laundry detergent ad the other day. It's just like it's literally everywhere. It's like to say
Yeah,
that hip hop is dead. It's like it's so alive you don't even notice it anymore,
it's true,
which I
Black. That's a
love.
great thing. Gifted Gab, I mean, rest in
Rest
peace.
in
What an
peace. Yeah.
incredible artist. He like he was on like a one of those skip the dishes. Do you guys have that in the States?
That sounds very Canadian.
It's like Uber, yeah, it's like Uber Eats, or maybe it was Uber Eats. It was like one of those
If they didn't talk about it on
one of those,
Letterkenny, I probably don't know
yeah.
about it.
You know,
I
my
just had a
buddy
song "Wheel
Squirrely
Snipe Sally"
Dan.
that just came out
Oh yeah, oh
with
dope, dope.
copyright and wordplay.
Oh cool, man, cool, cool.
Squirrely
Yeah.
Dan.
Yes, he's a buddy of mine, K Trevor Wilson. He's an
Oh,
old buddy of
really?
mine. Yeah, we actually used to do a lot of shows together. Like we actually did a lot of comedy together. Like I was in a sketch comedy troupe with him.
That's so
And
funny.
my buddy Cam, shout out Cam Wiley as well, who edited my newest video, is like this hilarious comedian. But yeah, I used to do a lot of sketch comedy too. I loved writing sketches and stuff
I
like that.
love
And yeah,
the
Trev is
episode.
hilarious.
The
Yeah.
episode where he gets baited into doing stand-up comedy, everybody knows he's hilarious, but the joke he didn't want to do it. I enjoyed that so much, the way they played that. It was just
Yeah.
I'm sad it's coming to an end. I had heard Jared Kiso talk about a couple of years how he wanted to be the longest running show in Canadian TV history. And I thought I thought he was serious, but then they announced after 12 seasons it's gonna be no more. But
Yeah, I think Trailer Park Boys is like, I don't know how many seasons they got, but
also it's
they
like
did a
12
lot.
seasons but like 65 episodes. So it's like you can kind of
Yeah.
count this like, any way you want, but
Yeah.
awesome,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
still brilliant stuff. Yeah, actually, you know what? You know what I want to ask you about? Some news that came out today. I don't know if you've heard this yet. They announced the casting of Reed Richards in the MCU. Do you know who it is?
I have not heard that. Ryan Reynolds, they'll put him in anything.
Nope. Someone. One more
Jay
guess.
Baruchel?
No.
I'm
Pedro
thinking
Pascal.
Canadian. Yo.
Hadn't thought of it. I'm in love with it. Like,
That's great. Yeah. He's the best, man.
yeah.
He's the best. That Nicolas Cage movie he did was so good.
Which one was that?
The uh what was it called? It had a really long
Is that the
title.
one that's about Nicolas Cage?
Yeah,
Like, I keep meaning to watch that and I haven't. I gotta watch that.
it seems like you know what the joke is going to be. Like I was kind of like, I don't know if I need to watch it. And then a buddy of mine's like, it might be my favorite movie of all
Yeah.
time. So I was like, all right, I'll check it out. Love it.
Well, after I
Like he's
saw
so good.
Vampire's Kiss with Nicolas Cage, if you haven't seen that one, fucking strap
No.
yourself in. It's from
Oh, I have
the
not.
80s. It is unhinged. And I don't watch anything that guy is in.
It's out the napkin.
Yes, it is out the napkin. It's out the napkin, stabbed you in the fork with the eye like a dual butcher. I did pop
Okay.
for Ric Flair with on the kick snare.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Dope.
I was like, I like that was one of those moments where like I hate when like I hear a rapper say something. I'm like, I could have thought of that, but I didn't. It's like there's sometimes I'm like, oh, I never would have thought of that, but I'm like, that was right in my Venn diagram wheelhouse,
Yep.
and I don't know how so
I'm the same way. Or I hear rappers say something that I've said already, and I'm like, yo, I did that better. And like this guy is like way bigger than me. He's like kicking some
yeah.
rhyme. Like that's the one that really I'm like, oh, I know that's arrogant to say, but it's
no.
we spend a lot of time writing these things. So
Yeah. I wrote a
but I'm
rhyme
the
recently.
same way when I hear something.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I wrote a rhyme recently that was I'm sicker than Abe Simpson with AIDS symptoms. And I was like,
That's dope.
I had to like text everyone. I'm like, I had to have stolen this from somewhere. There's no way no one else has put this together. And like none of my friends have.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's yours, but now that I've told everybody about it, it's someone else's, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I haven't had a Simpsons reference since probably season 23 of Simpsons.
Where do you stand? I'm somebody who like they had a few bad episodes. I think the one that 50 Cent was on might have been actually the worst one that I can remember. But like I still think they make brilliant stuff. I mean, it's evolved, but kudos to them. I mean,
I have not watched. I'm trying to think what the last new episode I watched of The Simpsons was. It's been.
I say that having watched about 3 episodes a year, but
yeah, like I remember watching one a million years ago, and Alan Moore was on it, the comic creator.
Yes, that guy.
And then I think like Mark Maron was on one. I watched that season. When was that? A couple years ago. That might have been the last season I watched. It's the only thing that I'm remembering recently.
That feels like a type of gig you get after you interview Obama on your garage.
Yeah.
So that's when the Simpsons start calling.
Yeah,
like,
that's like
right.
the only guest I knew that season. I was like, oh yeah, Mark Maron. And like Lisa's had a podcast or something. It was
That
kind
seems
of fun. I
inevitable.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm a big
But
American Dad fan myself. Like that's one of the shows that I think that's like the funny that Reno 911 and Frasier. For some reason, those three shows I could just watch endlessly on a loop. I don't know where the
yeah.
cross section is, but
My wife is a huge Frasier fan. I never got into it when it was originally on, but she loves it. It's like one of those shows she'll just put on, have it in the background, and it's just like it's kind of got that soothing vibe
it
with
is,
like
yeah.
some humor.
Is she
It's
watching the
funny
new
those
season?
she watched the first we don't have whatever it's on. What is it?
Paramount, yeah,
Paramount
it's yeah.
Plus. I don't have that one, so we haven't watched that. But
Well, if I can try to find it for you, maybe I'll try to get it to you.
okay, yeah, I appreciate that, man. Um yeah, yeah. It's like that warm, there's like a Frasier reminds me of in a weird way of you ever watch Star Trek The Next Generation?
I've actually
There's
never
like,
seen an episode of Star Trek of any
oh,
kind.
okay.
I don't know how it happened.
Wow. Wow. You're
But I do
missing out.
remember
Star
seeing something as
Trek's.
a kid where I saw Whoopi Goldberg. I was actually literally before this, I was watching Big Bang Theory, which I discovered last week because I thought that show was terrible, having never seen it. And now I discovered it's fucking hilarious. And Will Wheaton had her on a podcast on the episode. So
Okay. Well, there you go. Yeah. There's just like a warmth. There was something about Star Trek that always had like, there was like a hum
I
from
remember
the
the look of that
bridge.
show. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like beige and soothing. And I would always find it very relaxing. Like if I was like really hungover or sick, I just like want to watch some Star Trek and just be like, it was very calming.
That's Quantum
Yeah.
Leap for me, I think.
Yeah. It's my like grandpa show, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. No, but yeah,
Oh,
Frasier, I
I
don't know.
was watching the shit out of Northern Exposure a few years ago too. Remember that show? It
Yeah,
was
I
sort of the
never
show.
actually
It was like
watched it.
Twin Peaks if you put it through like a real rainbow filter.
Wasn't it in Canada?
I was
Or
in
no,
Alaska.
it was in Alaska, but was there a
Yeah.
Mountie in it? Or am I thinking of something else?
That might have been Twin Peaks actually, because
Maybe.
there's Mountie hats and parts of that. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Early '90s, we loved that shit. It was like you think back now, like Starbucks, grunge, Twin Peaks, all that shit. It was like we thought that part of the world was just a okay. Frasier, he went right from Cheers out there.
Oh, you're right. Seattle, Northwest.
Yeah,
Interesting.
where Bigfoot is. What's your feelings on Bigfoot? I've had some intellectual conversations on Bigfoot. I've been all over the map on my feelings on Bigfoot. I've been very disappointed when somebody called a press conference saying that they had a Bigfoot and ended up being a monkey suit in a block of ice. So, as a Canadian, any sign of him up there?
I have not seen him. I want to believe. I'm not again. I mean, I'm wearing. It's funny. I don't know. I'm
I
wearing.
did. I picked it on my
Yeah,
Alpha Flight, very
Alpha
on
Flight.
brand.
Dope. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, Alpha Flight Sasquatch. Sure, I'm not I'm keeping an open mind. Sasquatch could still be alive. Maybe he died. I mean, maybe he just lived like a few hundred years and I don't know what their lifespan is. Um, is it like a Harry and the Henderson situation? Is he like a hilarious guy who just wants to get back to his family? Um, leave him alone. Do they live underground? I mean, there's so much we don't know. Do they live at the Earth's core?
There,
Do they
if you
only
go
come up?
not far down the Bigfoot wormhole, you'll find there's a lot of people who believe that Bigfoot is like an interdimensional creature, and they have their evidence to back this up with. And that's one of the reasons why we don't find Bigfoot remains and like stuff like that. So think about that when your head hits the pillow tonight if you want. Like
Well,
it's
I love to imagine that we live in a world where interdimensional creatures exist. Like
yeah.
I'm fully like I'm open to it. I'm making myself available to that reality.
You know what's funny that I think about too is like back to the Marvel stuff is I think about 10 years ago, Marvel or Disney or whoever had a big debate internally about whether they thought the average human was smart enough to understand the multiverse. And I feel like I feel like there was a long time where they're like, are people actually going to understand what's going on in these movies? And I think they did a really good job of getting people there. And now everything is multiverse. It's like, that's it. It's everything. There's 90 versions of everything.
Oh yeah, if I had tried to explain the Infinity Gauntlet to my mom when I was
Right.
reading it in grade 6 or whatever, uh compared to now Thanos is like a household name.
Yeah.
It's bananas,
So
and they
that
were able
comic,
to do that.
that was a huge thing for me when that came out. That was, to me, that was almost so good I stopped reading comics. I was like, how does it get better than this? It's like, was
Yeah.
that one for you?
Oh yeah, for sure. And like that actually introduced me to George Perez, who
Yes.
drew the
Rest in
first
peace.
4 issues. Yeah, rest in peace, man. And like honestly, of all the artists I've met in comics, he was such a nice guy. Like he
I
was
hear that.
just,
Yeah.
and he loved what he did. Like, and you could tell, like, it's like with
To the
rappers,
very
it's
end,
any
he
art,
was
like,
he was out there.
yeah, he was just living like this was his dream. It's what he'd done since he was a kid, drawing superheroes, coming up with new costumes, really passionate about the stories and the
Yeah.
characters and fans and all that stuff. And that's what you need more of, right? It's like with rap too. I mean, like, why would somebody quit if they love what they're doing or they don't make millions? It's like
Right.
you're just gonna keep doing it. And
Exactly.
yeah, it's funny. You said like you're like, oh, well, you kind of lost touch with what I was doing. It's so hard to keep up on anything. But it's like for me, I've never stopped putting out stuff. Like Burglaritis is
Yeah.
what I see as like my first like official release, which was like 2006. But I had other stuff before that. But that's kind of like what I always saw as like this is like my first real like album that I really thought about. Like, like you, I'm sure like you get all these are like my best rhymes I was writing in high school and like I'm
Yeah.
finally gonna like get these all out of me and like who knows how long it's like 20 tracks, who cares?
Yeah.
And
Oh, my
but I've
first
like
my first album is exactly the amount of
yeah,
time you can
right.
have. Like the
Yeah.
world needs to hear it all.
Yeah, I'm just like you're just exploding. It's like I got so much to prove. There's all these different things I'm gonna do, and which is the best. But and yeah, I've just like never stopped doing it. So it's funny thinking about that now. That was 2006, almost 20 years ago, which is, bananas. But like, anyways, I don't know where I was going with that.
Let
But
me
yeah, it's
ask
just
you if you
because
can
it's like
relate
I
to
love what
this.
I'm doing. Like, why am I ever gonna stop? Like you were saying.
Let me see if you can relate to this torture. So I was in the middle of working this animated video about like a year ago, and it's still kind of like half done as part of this like little film I'm making. But it was like I'd never done it before, and I was getting just like tired and frustrated. But like, and I kept going, I should just quit. Like I can quit. Why can't I just quit? And I go, I'll quit. And then I go, well, if I quit, what am I going to do? And literally, my mind would always go back. I've always wanted to make a cartoon. And I'm like, holy fuck, my brain has caught me in this loop where even when I resign myself to quitting, the first thing I want to do is go back to the thing I just quit. And that is either the best thing in the world or it's going to kill me. you know? Can you
Yeah,
relate?
1,000,000%.
I
Yeah,
can't
same
stop.
thing. Like when you get and yeah, like even if it gets like I don't think about all the work, like the amount of hours that goes into people don't understand when you put
It's
out an album or anything,
yeah,
especially if you're like you're running it all. Like you are the executive producer, depending on your situation. Like I'm like juggling all these beats, all these writing the song, think of how it all fits together, getting the artwork, getting manufacturing, getting just like all this, like
chasing
you're
down
doing all
people
this
for
stuff.
verses.
Yeah, yeah, and you don't
Yeah,
even think about it because it's fun, right? And it's like
right.
so, but the amount of hours that go into that, there's like no way if you were to ever try and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like get this time back in money, but it's more
Near
like when you
impossible.
hold it and it's like, yo, we did this.
Yeah,
You don't think about it, you're not sleeping. It's like, oh, did this title suck? Do I have to come up? Like, what should I call the album? What song is this? What if I put this song? I changed the track order around like 10
yeah,
times. Every record's like, I think this song goes better, but I want to hit people hard off the top, but maybe like, I should like pull back a little bit and
yeah.
let them ease into things. Like you think of
Same
all these
debate. Yep.
things. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's
It's the best.
It is. It is the best. It's like it's I have gratitude to have those sort of problems, to be honest with
Yep.
you, that it's like to be, at this point in my life, in my like mid 40s, where I'm like, this is like if a little kid me saw what I was doing now, I mean, I'm not like, like there's a part of me that goes, when people talk about how much harder it is to make music and streaming now, there's a little part of me that goes, good. Because I feel like if
Yeah.
we can get rid of some of the people who are really just kind of look at this to try to, make, like, I can see a part-time income, but people who are really just trying to game their way into a full-time gig, like, I can do without most of those people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like all the flash in the pans, like when I think back in like 20 years of like grinding, doing shows and putting stuff out. And the amount of people you see like who splash on the scene and trying, they're
Yeah.
doing this big thing. And then they're like, they see how much work it is, or they're like, you just know their hearts aren't in it and they fade away. Like the people who are still around now are the people that really care. Like, I think of all these people, yeah, who just disappeared, went nowhere. And it's like, oh yeah, I didn't, so I hear you. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like streaming is like, how much money were you making anyway?
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Because I was gonna ask you that because so you really your first real album was around 2006. I always joke with my friends that like around 2006, not really six, but like seven, eight, nine is when the indie rap cliff happened, where it was like, well, everybody was trying to sell CDs to each other. Nobody was really buying CDs anymore. Streaming wasn't as big of a thing yet, but people could steal the music, so they wouldn't really they wouldn't really support you through like the Apple Store or whatever. That's a really hard time to break into music. I remember finding that every show I played, everybody in the crowd was trying to sell me a CD too. And you're like, this is not,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
How did you how did you survive in that environment? Or how did you find it?
dude, you're so right. 2006, 7, that was that like
Def Jux going
I
away, that was the death
yeah,
nail of it.
yeah, because even if I look at the
Raucous.
dudes that I was looking up to, like when I was like a teenager and I saw these guys in their like early 20s locally or whatever, who were like just breaking and doing things
Yeah,
and
that was
like the
esoteric for us. Yeah,
yeah, well, for me, it would have been like Buck 65, 6'2", like those guys when they went off and hooked up with like the Anti-Con dudes, and they were like Anti-Con was like pushing Buck 65
I
hard.
remember
So that
that.
was
Yeah,
bringing a lot of attention back to Halifax, Sage Francis, all those dudes would come up to Hali, and um and there was like this real thing happening. And like so me being like a younger dude in the scene and just like a fan with like, oh, one day I could do this. I remember seeing everything those guys were all doing. And then by the time it kind of got to like, oh shit, maybe I'm like getting close to this, like, and can follow some of these avenues, every one of those doors
yeah,
was closed and or had been milked to death. So by like
yeah.
2006, like all that stuff was over.
Right as
Yeah,
you
you
learn how to
mentioned
dance,
Def.
the party's over.
Exactly, right? Like Def Jux, like my CD got into distro. Like a couple of my friends who had albums come out like a year later didn't like I got real lucky that Burglaritis somehow found its way out
Yeah,
there.
because
We got
that's
like
the
national distro.
I
People
only would have
found it
found it
somehow.
that way because I can't even think of how I would have, but like it obviously you were able to get it out there somewhere for me to have found it.
Yeah, like I was on Han Solo Records and then they partnered with Urbnet, who partnered with Sonic Onion, who had a deal with Universal. So as you can tell, I made
Yes,
0 cents off this, but because there's so
you probably
many
got a
hands in
bill.
it. Like, well, I think I got free CDs that I could then
Yeah,
sell at shows. And then, but I heard like there was like crickets. I was like, I don't know what's going on. Then it was like almost like a year after the album came out, I was able to get videos happening. I got like a video for Cream of Wheat made and a video for The Root made. And then those got a bit of play here in Canada on Much Music, which was like our
yeah,
equivalent of MTV. And I was just like working, trying, like I was working at a comic shop, struggling, like picking up gigs anywhere I could, you know, trying touring, like hustling as hard as I could and getting like there was like no traction, nobody was biting. The one thing like I had like this A&R guy who no joke like was like you should be the Canadian Eminem and you should do battle rap and you should be like all like angry and all this shit. And I was like that's not me. I'm like more fun
you're like
and I
I'd
was
love to be
also
living that
like
down the rest of my life.
yeah, and it's like, but it was like he didn't like he was basically saying that. It's like you should
Yeah,
like, you got it. And I was like, this is really a conversation that's happening.
that's
Not that I would ever also, I would never say I'm like on the level of Eminem, but like that's what was like happening there. Like that was
yeah,
like the only thing they could see. And around that time, like you mentioned Nerdcore, I didn't know Nerdcore existed. My friend Jesse did a song with MC Front a lot,
yep.
and it was called Nerdcore Rising. And then I started finding out that, oh, there's this nerdcore scene. And those guys, like, they brought me out to a festival in where was it? Florida was the first one. They brought me to Orlando, and I didn't actually even know the scene at all. I didn't know who, like the
Yeah.
like, and then
Orlando's
I
not
met
known for
like
its hip hop scene either.
No, well, the nerdcore scene there was insane already. And this was like, I think by 2008, this is when I went out there and there was a festival called Nerdapalooza. And that's where I met Mega Ran and MC Front a lot. And those two dudes of the people I met, like I was like, yo, these guys are they're rappers.
Yeah.
Like they are rappers
Oh
and it's
God, yeah,
nerdcore.
yeah,
So that's what has always been my issue. Like I'm happy to be part of nerdcore. Like it has embraced me. I'm like fully, like I said, I'm a nerd. I've always been a nerd. I'm a nerd about hip hop. I'm a nerd about comics, whatever. And the thing that bugged me was like there were things in that scene that was like, they're like, yeah, I'm a nerdcore rapper, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you
just be
are a
a
shitty
rapper.
rapper.
Yeah,
You're not a good
concentrate on the
rapper. Like
rapper, and
that
someone
was
else will tell you what you're doing. I guess.
yeah. And like I'm still trying to get good at rapping, 20 years later. Like I'm like still like, how can I keep improving? So I was like, the only time it bugged me was like people were like, "Oh yeah, Wordburglar," and they write me off as like a nerdcore guy or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm an MC. Like I will hold my own as a rapper, and I
Oh yeah,
will in a cipher, put me in a freestyle, whatever. It's like I take rap seriously. So, but I'm also super nerdy, and it's like, yeah, I'll do a whole album about GI Joe because I want to.
yeah,
RZA makes a whole album inspired by Kung Fu. I'm doing a whole album about GI. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah.
but I'm taking the art of hip hop seriously and just applying the stuff I love. Anyway, I don't need you get what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
that was
So,
my exact on my first album. The first song was sampling was a big Letters to Cleo sample, and my thought process was I grew up on this stuff. This was playing in my house. Like a lot of these my hip hop heroes sample was playing in their house, so it seemed like a totally
mhm.
logical thing.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
thankfully never got sued for.
yeah. But yeah, anyways, to this day, like Mega Ran and Front are doing so well
Yeah,
and they deserve it. Like I would like Front style is so original. MC Front a lot, whether people are like, I'm not really sure about this. I was like, this guy's got like an incredible style. He's from New York too, and he knows like he's a hip hop head and he's kind of like become this like godfather of the whole nerdcore scene.
yeah,
And which is great. But he's like a super skilled MC, and obviously Mega Ran is too, and Mega Ran's crushing it. And there's a lot of great artists in that scene as well. But I was always like, if you're gonna rap, you got to take this seriously. If you
yeah.
don't know, and you don't want to be like a gatekeeper or anything like that. So but I'm just kind of like, yo, like,
Right.
can you
It's
listen to some good rap? Like, who's your like? Can you like try and find a rhythm? Can you try and like I never ever want to be like hating or dissing people because definitely when
right.
I came up, I got people were hating on me big time, and like where are they now? I'm sure I
Right.
got haters still, but whatever. Like, but it's like I want to be supportive, but I'm also like, if you're getting into something that you care about, don't you think you should know all about it? Like, I'm not going to play
Exactly.
baseball if I don't know how to play baseball. I'm
Right.
not going to you don't know anything about what's an inning, what's a shortstop? Like you got to learn the basics of this.
And
You
this
know what
isn't
I
eating
mean?
your vegetables. This is hip hop.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
motherfucker, if you can't care about this, like, what are you gonna care about?
Yeah, you know what I mean? So what are you doing? That's like, what are you doing? So man, we're all over the place. I'm still thinking about that in 100 years of hip hop. Where is it going to be? Um, it's funny, I'd like to be around for that.
Yeah, it's
I'll be
when
there.
he's.
I'll be
I
there in
start doing
50
the.
years.
Yeah, I start doing the math of like, when I'm like 80, what year is it gonna be? Like, holy shit,
Yeah.
these numbers are adding up fast. See if we make
Yeah.
it. Hopefully.
Well, I guess there will be like if you look at like the 20-year-old rappers now, like in all, they could totally be there in
Yeah.
hip hop 100. So I think I mean, I listen to new rap every week. I try and get new stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Like what are you listening to right now? Anything like
Oh, I'm
any recent
embarrassed as
stuff
shit.
that
I'm,
you
I'm I'm
recommend?
about to embarrass the fuck out of myself. Like what? And I showed this in the last episode too. I don't mind doing this because I think it's okay. I think we should not be embarrassed by what we listen to. But I ordered a record the other day because it was on sale. The first time I heard this artist, all I knew about him was a song I heard, and I'm like, I actually dig this. It kind of sounds like a kind of a DMX mixed with the Sex Pistols, and I started listening to him. And unfortunately, a lot of other things happened. But when I saw it on sale, I bought this piece of trash.
I don't know what that is.
Takashi 69.
Oh.
And I was like, well, it's on sale for a reason. I'm like, yeah, I might listen to this again someday. So I only mentioned that because I had no defense of what like a total dickhead that guy has proven to be. But don't be too embarrassed by the shit you like. Because the other thing I listened to right after that was the Carpenters, because I fucking love the Carpenters. And if you'd
Yeah,
ever
yeah, man.
listen to them from back in the day, they're so lush, and I just fall into a whole different world when I listen to that. So
Yeah.
that's my recommendations for you.
Dope, dope. Yeah.
You know what? Actually, I picked up the other day too. Which, if you've never heard this, they only made a small number of these, but Wugazi, one of the guys
I
from
have that
Doomtree.
one.
Yes,
Yeah.
I just got
Oh,
this
I
the
didn't
other
know it
day.
was
I
a dude
was
from I didn't know he was from Doomtree.
yeah, because I wanted to track him down because I thought about maybe trying to see if I could come in and talk about this, but like uh this is amazing. If no one ever
That's a
hasn't
great album.
heard this, yeah, it's
Yeah.
Fugazi mixed with Fugazi is an interesting one because when I was a kid, that was like the heaviest music I listened to, and it felt really heavy. But now when I listen back to it now, it feels melodic. Like I'm like I have a totally different experience listening to Fugazi as an adult as I did with a child. It's the
Hmm.
only band I can kind of think of like that. But amazing shit.
Yeah.
So I watched your video today for 1984, and holy shit. Where do I begin? Like first, if you haven't watched it, pause and go watch it because I'm gonna spoil some stuff. But uh was it Ultimate Warrior inspired face paint? Because that was the first
Yeah,
thing I was like,
of course.
yes,
Yeah. Like I think I'm like half Ultimate Warrior, half Marty Jannetty of the
yes, of the rockers,
like, yeah, I was like, who is this guy? Because I thought like Sergeant Slaughter would be too easy
right?
to
Because the GI
spoof.
Joe thing, yeah,
Yeah. And I was like, I think it's more fun, especially I had my pandemic hair going. Like I'm still, I've got a mini
yeah.
mullet now, but
Was that your real hair?
that was my real hair. Yeah,
Jesus
yeah.
Christ, that was the. I did not think that was the case.
Yeah, dude.
Well done, well done.
So that was like 3 years of growing it out during the pandemic.
Holy
And then I
shit!
was like, I can use it for this video before I cut
You
it.
think like I
And
think?
yeah.
Yes.
And it was like, this is like half the battle right there. Just getting that crazy mullet. And I got like the what's his name? Eastbound and Down, Danny
Oh yeah,
McBride.
Danny McBride. Yeah,
Yeah, Burns. But yeah,
man.
super
When he gets
just
in that fight with Will Ferrell dressed like Ric
yeah.
Flair, I could watch that for the rest of my life.
It's a good show, man. That's a good show.
Yeah, but
Um,
so
yeah, no,
like
I'm
the
glad you
making
like the
the
video.
yeah, the
Yeah.
video is really amazing. So if you haven't seen it, it's sort of a play, or it's a play on GI Joe, and I have to go back and pause because I saw it. I wasn't able to stop and read all the little things under there, but I got there's some funny stuff at the bottom. I always appreciate stuff like that. I always think it's so smart to give somebody a reason to come back and watch a second time. Like that's what I love about hip hop is that there are songs that like I've heard 100 times. I'm only getting the lyrics to now, and it's like that is like it's a reward. And I don't know, man. Very smart, very brilliant video.
Thank
You
you,
you
man.
did something cool with the actors. What was it like casting that? Because I feel like I could kind of see that and go, oh, I see how he made this stuff like that. But it must be a pain to try to get people like that. You know, what was that like?
Yeah, well, we started with the there's three generations in there, and sort of the mid generation, they're friends of mine. So the dude with the glasses actually is the guy who made the beat, Peter, and he was going to be in a Peter project. It was incredible. And actually, he did this insane album called Daft Science, which if you can find it, it's Daft Punk and the Beastie Boys.
Oh,
It is
I can't find it
so
fast enough, actually.
Dude, it is so good. And he had it up for free download until his like Bandcamp almost crashed, I think, because it was like, I don't know, all these, I think Rolling Stone picked up on it, like all these places picked up on it. He got like crazy traction. But yeah, it's just called Daft
Yeah,
Science. So
I'm looking
big
at it
shout out
right
to Peter
now.
Project. He's an old buddy and he produced a lot of songs for me. And he made that beat, which is crazy. Like he's the guy where I'm like, yo, I want to make this song that's like a spoof of crazy toy commercials from the 80s and 90s. And it's just like a Saturday morning ad that's like where some dude is just yelling at you to buy toys. And he's
Yeah.
like, I know exactly what beat to make.
All right, I called the right
And
guy.
he did it. But then he'll make other beats that sound like completely different. So he's really, really a genius. So yeah, we basically started with the people I knew who we could get. And then my friend Sandy, who directed it, who's just this like brilliant. He's a comedian, writer, actor. He he was like, okay, these are the three people that we're gonna use. So then let's cast them as older people and them as younger people. So Sandy actually called like a friend of his who's like works in casting, and we just got some non-union actors to be in it. And yeah, it was super fun. Like to me,
It looks
as
like
a
it.
kid, I would always watch those toy commercials and think those kids had like the greatest life ever. Like, yo, I want to be there with all the look at all the Transformers that kid
How
has.
come my
He doesn't
backyard
even
doesn't have those perfect rocks
yeah,
that he had to do the little
yeah,
battles? You know what the
yeah.
fuck?
And
Where's
they were
this kid
always the
live?
new ones that you'd
Yeah,
never seen before. It's
I
like, yo,
know.
I've never seen that Spider-Man toy anywhere. Like, how'd
Yeah,
that kid get it?
yeah, I know.
And
That was something I remember back in the day. Like I never got my snake. It's like you'd go to the store and there'd be certain figures. Like it felt like only certain figures were sent to certain parts of the country. Because I'm
yeah.
looking at the same like stormtrooper, like Star Wars figure over and over again, and I'm not getting any Han Solos out here in the Northeast. It was
Oh
very
yeah.
frustrating.
Dude, yeah, in Canada, all we got in GI Joe was like snow job. We had all the snow guys. Like, yo, give us the desert guys too. Come on, hook us.
You're the lumberjack
Yeah.
GI Joe. So where are all those figures? Were those I don't know GI Joe as well as I know other stuff. Were those actual GI Joe figures that you like repainted, or were they just like there's a lot of work went into that, it looked like.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so that's by a guy, this dude Aussie 92, who's this incredible toy customizer who he actually made me a figure about 10 years ago and he gave it to me as a gift. He's from Michigan and I was at this show in Colorado and he gives me this. He's like, here's this figure I made of you. It's like, yo, this is crazy. And it was this character I had, the Rap Viper, and he made it. And then we just got talking. He's a huge GI Joe fan. I'm like, he's just like a huge hip hop head, and we were like, we became buddies. So then when I had the idea for this song, my dream was, oh man, it'd be so cool if we could make this video, and if I could get like one or two custom figures to go in the video, and then that would be incredible. So I
Yeah.
told Ozzy, I called him up. I was like, here's the idea, blah, 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 blah. Do you think maybe you could do like one or two figures and we could use them in the video? It'd be really, really dope. Blah, blah, blah. He heard the song and he's like, yo, man, I'm doing all the figures. And it blew like I still can't believe there's like 25 figures. And yeah, so he used old GI Joes and he mixed and matched. Like for anyone who ever like messed around with GI Joes, you can take them apart and change their arms and heads and whatever.
I
Like
never
there's a screw
realized
on the
that.
back. Oh yeah, dude, it's amazing. There's
I got
like
a couple over there. I'll have to get the screwdriver out.
yeah, there's a little screw in the back. You just where the backpack goes. You just get a little Phillips screwdriver, a mini one, and take them apart, and you can interchange their arms and legs and
I had
whatever.
no
Like,
idea. That's
yeah,
crazy.
give your Cobra Commander a
I
real
know.
head.
I
You
got
know?
yeah. I don't have any good GI Joes. I have good other figures, but like I have like Swift Kick, like
Yeah, yeah.
and I have the medic guy that like didn't want to carry a gun.
Oh yeah, Lifeline.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lifeline. Yeah, you really know your
Um,
GI Joes.
I actually do. I actually do.
Speaking of, so you voiced a Transformer, correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm the
How'd that come
voice
about?
of Starscope.
Starscope?
Man, crazy luck. A guy came, I did a show in New York and this guy was at the show and he came up to me after and he was like, hey, I write cartoons, I make cartoons. Would you ever want to be a voice um, in this
At
like
that point, that
Transformers
guy
thing?
would never be able to get rid of me.
Yeah. And I've done some acting and stuff in the past, and I was like, yeah, like I'm like, yeah, of course, it'd be crazy. And he knew my music and it was a super cool dude, and I was like, okay, cool. Didn't think I'd ever hear from him again.
Yeah.
Then a few months, it was like actually into the pandemic, and then I just get this random email to ask me to like send in a demo for like an audition for this Transformer cartoon. And yeah, next thing I know, they cast me. And yeah, I got to play Starscope, the rapping telescope.
There's
And it was
no better
crazy.
gig than voiceover.
Dude,
Like
the
what a
best. Yeah.
gig. What
Yeah,
a
totally.
gig.
It's the best and just so fun and just I got the little figure. But yeah, so that's super fun. Hopefully there'll be more, but
That's so
I'd
cool.
love to do a 1984 cartoon. Like that would be crazy. But
I
so
just saw the Transformers movie for the first time. I actually made a friend to this podcast. Actually, this was back to Esoteric. My man Jared Eagle down in Florida just did a Kickstarter for a movie he's doing about Orson Welles. So it's a graphic novel that may be a movie, but it's told through the lens of the Transformers because he was a huge Transformers fan growing up. And so he got Esoteric to record like this kind of secret, like Once Upon a Time in Shaolin style EP that you could only get if you supported the Kickstarter on a certain. There's only making like 40 things of vinyl of it, and
dude,
I
I
got
didn't
to.
hear anything about this. Is it still
I'm trying to
running?
help spread the word because so now like the thing the music's in. He actually was nice enough to share it with me, but he told me not to give it to anybody, of course.
Yeah.
But he I'm trying to help him get the word out about it a little bit. It's a really amazing project. He already raised all the money for the Kickstarter, so this was like one of the things that I think he thought was going to like sell out fast, but something else kind of came in and did it. And I think he's like, oh, I have this really cool thing here that we got to figure out how we do something with it. But it's really, really awesome. And
Oh, that's dope. That's dope. So it's a comic book or it's a movie
so
about
it's
Orson?
so the comic book was what the Kickstarter was for, like a graphic novel, and it's sort of I'm not doing it. It's called Planet Orson, so I'd recommend people just kind of look up to get the full information. But he played the planet in the Transformers movie. Was it what's it?
Unicron is
Unicron.
the name.
Yes. So it's somehow tied to that, and I think he might be. I don't think he's as Unicron. I think he might be talking to him or something. I gotta refresh my memory. I can remember everything that happened in the seventh grade, but like I can't remember what my friends are doing. But
Yeah,
it's amazing what the work he's done. He was a screenwriter, a very interesting, amazing, awesome dude, and
dope.
huge Esoteric fan. But he got to start to do it because they sampled the Transformers and Be Alert, like one of their first
Yeah.
songs.
Dun,
You
dun,
know,
dun,
so
dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah. Yo, that's dope. That's dope. I want to check that out. We're doing a Kickstarter in the new year for a comic, so I'm
well. So
very
this is
curious
probably going to
to.
drop in December. So is it worth promoting that a little bit now, or anything you want to talk
Oh,
about?
yeah, I don't have a date set up for it, but basically, maybe it'll probably be March, I think, when we're launching. That's what I'm looking at. But yeah, we're doing a graphic novel adaptation of a bunch of my songs. So
Cool.
we're going to get a bunch of different artists to illustrate my songs as comics. And I'm like writing and plotting out all the comics and the stories. It's basically like making music videos for your songs, except it's a comic instead of a music video. And then you can read along and listen to the music.
That's so
So
cool.
yeah, and yeah, we got some crazy artists lined up. Steve McNiven's doing the cover, which I haven't announced publicly. So there's a scoop. I don't know if you know
Sweet.
him, but he did Civil War for Marvel and
Yeah,
Old Man
that's amazing.
Logan, a bunch of
Great.
crazy things. Yeah. So, and we got a bunch of amazing artists lined up
What are
for it.
some of your favorite comic runs of all time? I went on a collecting binge a few years ago and I got the entire Flash collection, like the whole 200 something episode issues, and I've been slowly reading through that and I'm really enjoying it. I did the same with the Robin series because I always liked Tim Drake
Yeah.
and and
Which Flash? Was it Mark Wade or
it's
Jeff
mostly
Johns?
it's both.
Yeah.
I think it's both. I mean, with that many issues, it covers just like friggin' everybody. But
Yeah.
it's it's just endlessly enjoying. Did you see the Marvels that came out the other day?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
I went. Unfortunately, people are shitting on how bad it's doing, but they're forgetting that this was a movie that nobody could promote. That like they couldn't do interviews because of the strike, so it's like you got to
Right,
kind of grade
right,
it on a
right.
curve. But one of my friends who writes for Screen Rant described it as sort of like reading issue 142 of a comic book series that you stopped reading at 50. And I can kind of see what he's talking about, but I did really, really enjoy the interaction between the three characters, and I thought yeah, it was fun. I liked it.
Yeah, that's actually an incredible description because I
He's a
I
good
get
writer,
that instantly, from reading comics, like getting them on a spinner rack, and then like you get an issue one day, and then you have no idea what happens, and then you get the next
especially
issue,
back
and
then.
yeah, it's like 30 issues later, and you're like, yo,
Do you
what?
remember your earliest comics, like the stuff that really got you hooked? I don't know if you ever heard of Gru the Wanderer, but like
Oh yeah, man.
this was it for me, and I still get every issue that comes out. This just came in the mail the other day, and this was when I first saw this on a spinner rack in like a Stop and Shop back when I was a kid. I was like, I don't know what this is, but it's like nothing I've ever seen before.
Yeah,
And they've been
Sergio
telling the same jokes
Aragones.
ever since. That dude's a legend. Like
Yeah.
he's just an absolute fastest drawer out there, and just tons of great stories about him on the internet. Such a
And you
character.
can just see like in his illustration, they're fun. Like you look
Mm-hmm.
at Gru or you look at the stuff he did in like Mad Magazine,
Yes, he
it's
was
just
in
like
every episode, every
fun.
issue of Mad Magazine, I think.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's crazy. That's
and
crazy.
the love of crowd scenes, like
Yeah.
just like knowing that's somebody who loves drawing, because because I mean I'm
Yeah.
someone who loves a good Easter egg. Obviously, you are too, and it's like you're doing that because you're so delighted by what you're doing. It's like Chris crowd scenes. A lot of times, if you're drawing, and be like, "What the fuck am I doing? This could be like one big guy, right? It doesn't have to be like a
Yeah.
million guys. Like people will buy that. I'll just draw one and do X hundred." But like, oh, man, it's so people like that keep me very inspired.
It's true. It's like that kid in the back of class, and you look over and they're still drawing the crowd scene. It's like,
Yep. Yeah.
how
And
many
the
people are you putting in there?
funny thing too with me, so Mark Evanair, I always say his name wrong, but he was sort of the writer, sort of like one of the spokesperson for Gru all these years. I didn't realize this was over. He wrote a lot of Garfield and Friends as well, which to me was everything. I got my little Garfield back massager
I
here.
saw that.
Yeah, I
Dude,
got a
that's
Garfield
incredible.
tattoo recently based on a drawing I did as a kid. I can't even really show it, but like I found an old Garfield drawing, did a notebook, and got it tattooed on me. Like, and the same guy responsible for it. I think he's just sitting he's sitting up somewhere in New Hampshire right now, waiting for me to send him an email inviting him on this podcast. But,
Dude, look, I knew we were gonna get along and like, we were talking off the top about just like, the similar stuff we dig. But when you drop a Garfield, like I loved Garfield too. And I feel like I don't think anyone in my adult life has ever admitted to me they loved Garfield. So props. Like,
I'll
why
take it
would
one more
people,
step forward. I think I'm still scared by the Garfield Halloween special.
the Garfield and the Nine Lives one where
Dude,
there's like
okay.
the
My entire
yes.
I'm making a movie based on that. This is sort of like that inspired this movie I'm making. I'm doing this album. I did this album called Drinking Songs for Children, and it's all it's one of Esoteric and Cool Keith and Young Dirty Bastard. It's all recorded, Razcast, all the shit. But I'm making a movie where I do a song, an album for each, a video for each song, and link them together with like commercials and stuff. And I've been working
Dope.
on it for like 2 years. But like it was based on the idea from the Nine Lives book, because it was like I have this character Oxy Astronaut that I use, and it was going to be each video was going to represent a different version of that character just because of that book. Sorry to interrupt you.
Dude, that's crazy. No, you knew instantly the second I said that because that's with like the lab experiment cat like that freaked me out as a
There was
kid.
some heartbreaking shit in that. I remember one of
Yeah.
them. So I was flipping through it recently, because this is not the first time I've told that story. And I remember just seeing like it is amazing, like uh how emotional a cartoon cat can make you. And like I recently, and I guess maybe I'm easy, but like my girlfriend put on like this animated cat movie, and she turns it on, and she's still like typing on her phone, and I'm watching it. 3 minutes in, I'm already crying because of like this cat that like lost its home, and she's looking at me like, who the fuck am I living with? But like I feel like it's like if that was a baby, I probably wouldn't have cried, but it was a cat, and I was just like, oh man. But Garfield just takes you right back. I still have all my old books that I had as a kid. Like the
Yeah.
reason I have this tattoo is because inside of one of those old books there was a little how to draw Garfield, and that's the same Garfield that I learned to draw and then eventually put on my body last month.
Well, as an MC, I'm always looking for rhymes with Wordburglar and burgle. So obviously,
Normal,
normal
yeah.
comes right. It's
A thermal
one of
normal
the
with a word
eight
burgle.
words you can do. Yeah, yeah.
I'm asking about that name because it's like if I came up with the name Word Burglar, I would immediately pat myself on the back, put the pen down, and go, I've done it for the day. Like that's like one of those names where like I feel like must have opened a few doors for you, because even like I was texting with someone before that. I'm like, he was asking me for something like, hey, I'm about doing an interview. I was like, who's it with? And I'm like, Word Burglar. And he goes, that's a wild ass name, LOL. Like that's the response that's right there. And it's
That's
a
it,
great
man.
name, man.
Well, thank you. It's funny because my initials are SJ, and I was rapping as like SJ, like my first rap name when I was in like grade 5 or 6, I was like SJ Jazzy Jordan, which was just like a DJ Jazzy Jeff ripoff, right?
That's still
Um,
pretty funny.
but it was like old school, and then people used to call me Jazzy, and just I was SJ, and then I was like SJ the Optimus Drag, and then I was just like SJ, and you know,
You couldn't end up with on Jay-Z on that same path because your
yeah,
name is Sean. You're like
yeah,
Jazzy. You're like
I
then I
know.
was Hawaii. Then I was like Hawaii Sophie fame. Like,
Um, so I was in this group, and I was SJ in this group. It was just my buddies from junior high and high school. And we were the dregs of society, and I was SJ. And then I like went out and started recording solo songs, and I did 5 songs, my first 5 like solo tracks, and one of them was called The Wordburglar, and it was just that was the song. And I was like, I burgle words, and it was like, and I remember going to record it, and I recorded it at this like house. There was like a party going on. It was in the basement, and like everyone could like was around, and like there was no sound booth. I just like got on the mic and just started like recording this, and I recorded that song, the Wordburglar, and like everybody like erupted when I was like recording, and they just like loved, like it just connected, like.
yeah,
And
those
then
moments are rare when they first start
yeah,
happening. You're just like, holy shit.
yeah, and then it was just like I gave out my CD to people, and then I'd be like doing some like gigs here and there, and just like hustling and meeting people, and then people like, oh yeah, like they bring me up to rap somewhere, and they'd be like, what's your name? Like SJ, okay, whatever. And then I get up and perform, and then I come down and like, oh yo, I didn't know you were Word Burglar. You just said you were SJ. I'm like, yeah, and then I started to click in that like more people, because college radio started playing that song, and like people just got to know me from that song a little bit, I guess. And I knew like I was like, maybe that is my rap name. And also because SJ is like so generic.
Yeah.
It's just like
Because you and I
the
both have
most,
very generic names. Like I'm Tim Johnson.
yeah.
Like, it's like how many of us are there out there? A lot, because I get a
Yeah.
lot of their emails.
Yeah. And yeah, and it was me. It like felt like it was kind of like a super villain. It was kind of fun. It was kind of nerdy, fun to say, like a bit like whatever, like,
The funny
some
thing too
people
is
like, oh
like
yeah,
it does sound a little nerd chorus, but if you told me there was a rapper named Word Burglar that came out of like Yonkers, I would believe that too.
yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah, well, yeah. So yeah, it literally stuck. And that was probably 20 years ago. So that single was like 2002 or two. I probably first recorded it in 2002, and then or 2003. And then I had like an EP, and then that song got put on a compilation, which wound up getting me the deal to do Burglaritis. And yeah, so the name literally opened a lot of doors for me, and I loved it instantly. And yeah, luck,
yeah,
people seem to remember it. And like I think people even like they'll hear it and they're like, oh, I've heard of you, and they haven't heard of me, but the
right. They
name
think
makes
they
them
did.
think they've heard of me.
I had that a little back in the day because my first crew's name was Project Mayhem, and not
Okay.
everybody put together the Fight Club thing, you
Oh,
know.
okay.
And so
Yeah,
everyone's
yeah.
like, "Oh, I've heard of you guys." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, you definitely have." Yeah, it's like, I'm like, we have one mixtape and all the copies are in my closet, but yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure you big
yeah.
fan.
Yeah, so that's funny, man. It's true.
Yeah.
That's
Do
true.
you still perform live?
Oh yeah, man. I was just did a little tour on the West Coast here in Canada, and oh yeah, man, I'm busier than ever. Like obviously pandemic slowed things down, but the last year, 2023 was crazy. Just did as many shows as possible. I don't know if you're experiencing this, but like venues are just closing everywhere here.
They're
So
actually
it's
just starting to
tricky.
reopen here because there was one guy. I live near Northampton, which is our little city around here. One guy had most of the liquor licenses and couldn't reopen, so they just now cleared it up. So we're getting a bunch of venues back. So we're the
Oh,
exception.
dope.
So come play at
Dope.
our places.
Dude, I would love to. Do you know
They
Esh by any chance? Do you know
who?
Esh?
I don't think
Esh the
so.
Monolith?
I'll have to look. That sounds familiar.
Yeah,
I'll
and
have to
he's in
look
a
it
group
up.
called Esh and the Isolations. I think he was in Massachusetts. I thought he was from Mass, but maybe he's in Rhode Island now.
Sounds
But
familiar,
he's
and that's
dope. I've
practically
like
mass.
he's a dude who like when I was like just starting out, he was kind of just starting. We connected. He was like one of the first American rappers that I kind of connected with way back in the day, and
What
we've
was your
done a few tracks together. But
What
yeah.
was your first real like pinch me moment of like, oh, now I'm working with somebody who I was definitely on the other side of a fan, and now oh, we're actually working together? Because like I've had a few of those moments. I'm like, oh, this is happening. Like this is not just
Yeah.
something I fantasize about or wrote about in a notebook. Like
Yeah. Well, on like a local Canadian level, I got to work with Joe Run Bombay, who to me is a Canadian legend. And where I'm from, he's been doing stuff since the 80s. He like, opened for Public Enemy way back in the day, like when Public Enemy was like,
Everybody opened for Public Enemy. They would
I know.
they had the best taste. I
They
love
did.
Public Enemy.
And
Apocalypse 91 to me, I could listen to that day in and day out. I probably know
dude,
every.
it's probably my favorite one too. I
Me too.
mean,
And
people are
it's
like,
like you could argue any of them are the best, but that one is my favorite.
yeah, yeah, that's a great album. And not and the Anthrax song was like that was a good jam, but it was like
Right.
there's
Yeah.
other tracks.
I
Oh
was
man,
listening to that the other day and I was debating if I could do that song at karaoke. Because I know all the words, but it's like I don't know if I got the I'd have to do a few dry runs of that to see if I still got the pipes to like hold it
yeah.
up for that long.
It's funny. My one time I did "Too Legit to Quit" by MC Hammer. My wife loves karaoke, and
I
I'm
did
not
Ice
big
Ice
on.
Baby.
Yeah, and it's like a couple of, and they just come back instantly. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, I can rap "Too Legit to Quit," and like people
Yeah,
lose their
who knew?
mind. And
I
it's
think
like,
I could probably do the Humpty Dance and probably
yeah.
scenario without like,
Oh yeah, scenario. Well, if I go somewhere and scenarios on the karaoke list, that's a good karaoke spot.
yeah.
Um,
It is
but
wild these things that get stuck in your mind,
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, Joe Run was huge, like for me locally, and then of course doing a cool track with Cool Keith was crazy. Doing track with Esoteric on my album Bergonomic. I was really excited because Buck 65 produced a track on there and Joe Run produced a track. And those were the two like legends for me looking up like
Yeah.
when I was a kid. So that was huge. And Mocha Only, who you may know
I
Mocha
do
Only.
know that name. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen that written and I don't think I ever knew how it was said before, but
Yeah, Mocha
I can
Only.
picture it.
Dude, he's probably the most prolific Canadian rapper. He's so dope. Like so many releases. He actually did work with MF Doom. He's to my knowledge the only
That's
Canadian.
yes, that's
He's
what
the
it
only
was.
Canadian who's worked with MF Doom, as far as I know.
I'm assuming you're as huge of a
And
Doom fan as I am.
of course, I mean, how can you not be? Like,
Amazing.
of course,
I just did a
yeah.
mix. I just did a 30-minute mega mix of all Doom stuff that I mixed together into with all my beats and stuff that I made.
Oh,
I
dope.
Operation Moon's Day. I just Doom is just the best.
Yeah. Well, here's something crazy. Then the other connect, I should say, Moke only. There's another Canadian. The dude who made the beat, More
Drake.
Soup, is 6'2", who's Canadian. And
Okay.
6'2" is
Oh
in the
yeah, I didn't know
semitones
62 was
with Buck
Canadian.
65. Yeah, so 6'2" and Buck 65 are in a group called the Sebutones. And man, I thought those guys were going to be bigger than anything. They were like, it was going to be bigger than Dr. Octagon like, it was just like,
Yeah.
they seemed to be on this trajectory. And like the Anticon guys were like pushing them, like they were going to be that, like, it was huge for Halifax back then. People talk about, you were talking about Seattle and like Nirvana and stuff. Halifax hip hop in that era felt like we were like going to be like, not to
The
like,
next big, yeah, no, I
not the next big
actually
thing, but
I know what
but
but I know what you're talking about because I remember feeling that, hearing that buzz. Because I was,
yeah, it was crazy. The scene there was so insane, and like the hip hop community there was so cool, and everyone was unique and doing different stuff, but it was really good and based in like turntablism and classic beat making, but all like new weirder stuff. Go find the Sebutones if you can. Really different, good shit. Anyway, 6'2" produced that MF Doom track that Moke only raps on. It's called More Soup. More soup for your meal.
yes,
It's like more soup for your
yes,
meal, more
yeah.
soup. And it's the beat's dope. And yeah,
I tried to get a Doom feature so many times, and it's funny. Once again, back to Esoteric. I've told this story a few times, where I was did the song with Esoteric, and I was like, basically, I'm like, I'm gonna give this a shot. Like, I'm like, he done a few albums with Doom. I'm like, look, I've asked him advice a few times. Esoteric, he's always been nice to respond and things like that. But I asked him, like, is there a manager? Is there anybody I can even reach out to even attempt to try to get something started? And that was the one thing, no response. I'm
yeah.
like, if you're inside that Doom circle, I don't think anybody was letting anybody else in, because he would just pop up with random, like, I'd see him do songs with these totally random people. Like, somehow those people got in touch and wrote a check and something happened. Like, who would I got to talk to?
Yeah, well, that was the thing with Cool Keith too, because I'd met him like a few times, and I don't know if he's like for whatever reason, but he remembered my name. Like maybe it was like you said, word was like a word burglar, but he didn't remember. Like I was like, oh, we met before. I'm word burglar. He's like, yeah, word burglar. Like, and I was like, you don't remember me. Like that's impossible. But then we wound up doing this track together through Mega Ran. And it's the same thing. It's like now I see Keith pop up on so many things. I mean, it's been like
Yeah.
this for like 10 years where you're like, how did this dude like did some guy just give Keith like 50 grand to make an entire album with him and then they just put it out and then Keith just, you know, went
Yeah.
on his way? Because like this record just came out, like I was telling you, like he had that great album with Real Bad Man, Serpent, at the start of this year, which was really good. It was like Real Bad Man was like, I'm gonna like get the Keith. Because I think with Cool Keith, I don't know how big of a Keith listener you are. Like he
I
puts
know a
out so
lot of it.
much
Yeah.
material that it's like just rein it in and give me
Yeah.
that like
Like
gold. Like,
Prince. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
because he'll do stuff like I saw him live and I swear he did like a 20-minute freestyle where he was just like saying basketball team names. Denver Nuggets, you know,
He mentioned the Dallas
OKC's doing
Mavericks
okay.
on the verse
Like,
that
yeah,
he's like sitting courtside at the Dallas Mavericks.
yeah. The Bullets, the now
Yeah.
the Wizards. It's like it's
It's
like,
funny. I got hooked up with him because of Esso. Because like I know I had the song with him and we were working on. It. I'm like, no one's getting back to me. I'm trying to reach out to, and I was in talks to try to get Humpty Hump on it, but unfortunately he passed
yo,
away. And that didn't. I don't think it would have happened now that I've kind of heard where he was at. But like the so then he was like, here's Keith's information. Hit him up, and I wrote him up, and Cool Keith's like, yep, definitely. Like
yeah,
so.
that's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, and he's like Keith knows, like I've never met someone who was so confident and like they knew who they were to the people they were talking to, and they were like respectful of like, you know, they're respectful of me being like obviously like a super fan, but also like you know, an artist trying to work and like,
Yeah.
but like knowing like they kind of have to keep up that Keith persona,
Yeah,
but
he's like
also
Black
like,
David Bowie, somewhat.
yeah,
Like he's just like he's like sort of an alien that just sort of
yeah,
showed up here, and he's just he's I think he's a little bit of almost Tracy Morgan to him, where you go, you're so smart to be able to, you're smarter than it's obvious that it is, but you're brilliant,
he's
and
brilliant.
it's so
He's
cool to see to
brilliant.
be in the. I've never been in the presence of him, but he feels like somebody to be in his presence must be an
He's
interesting
just like
experience.
the things he says, like I like he posted something on Instagram and I had to like quote him in the comments back to him because it was just like so he just said something like we're huger than you and we're getting huger. Like it was like the way he just put the words together was just like it's so succinct and so hilarious, but so like braggadocious and just perfect. And
Yeah,
it's just such a key thing. Like he has that EP with Cutmaster Kurt, and it's called Your Mom Is My Wife,
yeah.
which is like that's all you need to say.
Mm.
It's like what a diss.
He's got
Your
his
mom is
own.
my
He's got
wife.
his own create.
Like
His flow is so unique. Like when
his
we got the
flow's
vocals
crazy.
from him,
Yeah.
we've laid him down. We kept listening. I'm like, do we put this on beat right? And we tried it 15 different ways and kept listening and listening. And eventually realized, no, it was exactly right. And then eventually
Yeah.
we finally got it. Like, I can't believe we went through all of that. But like, it was perfect. And we just took us a while to wrap our heads around it.
That's so dope, man. That's so dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he's good, man. So yeah, those are those moments, you know. But yeah, Mocha Only, definitely check out Mocha Only. Like to me, getting Buck 65 Joe Ron and Mocha Only on one album, for me, that's like a personal, like huge, like, yo, these are three Canadian underground hip hop icons to me. And they're all on my record. And they all like, as far as you know, maybe I'm biased, but I feel like they brought their A game. Like you can tell when sometimes
Yeah,
people
oh,
are just like, okay,
definitely. Yeah.
whatever, and it's like
I got a
I
few
work.
verses that I feel like people were looking up for were looking for pill money, and you can kind of tell.
Yo, I can get that guy for $150. Word.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a slippery slope, but it's worth it. Like for the way I see it, it's like too, like I want to fairly compensate someone that
me
like is
too.
gonna work. I have to like, listen, I respect what you do. Like, you know, I bought your albums all these years. Like, if you want to work with me, I'm gonna at least pay you like the minimum of what like you
Yeah,
would hire a session guitarist to come in and,
I feel the exact same way.
like you gotta like,
There was a thing when I was coming up where like this was so stupid. I thought it was stupid then. It's even stupider now. Where people like, oh, you did a verse with so and so, yeah, but you had to pay him. He didn't do it for the love. And I'm just like, the fuck, like. Why would you expect somebody to just, as a professional person, to just do it for the love of hip hop for some random nitwit who came up to him with a flat brimmed hat going like this, talking he's next? Like,
yeah,
that shit was so ridiculous. Like, you respect the person. Like,
yeah. If they give you a shitty product, that's when it sucks.
right.
But it's like, you deliver. When I work with people, I'll be like super hands-on. I feel like you are too. And it's like, I want to be like, all right, let's work. And like, if how are we going to make this the best possible thing it can be? And like, if you hear the track with Mocha, like him and I go back and forth. The concept was us going back and forth on a phone call, and I'm trying to get him to be on my posse cut. And he's like, I don't know who you are. And we've met, we've done shows together. So everything I'm dropping in
I
the
have to
verse is
listen to
like,
this.
yeah, it's called Want to Be on My Posse Cut. And it was my take on like a concept posse cut song. I think it's a pretty dope track.
Dude, like you have so many great ideas. Like, do you feel as being
Thanks,
like a
man.
multimedia artist that is that so some people like I'm just gonna be a rapper, that's all I'm gonna do is rap and all this stuff, but like it seems like you've learned something that I've sort of learned, where if you can do everything, that's a huge advantage. Like if it's like, I'm sure any little task you might not necessarily want to do but you probably could do you feel that gives you an advantage and more control of your own destiny?
Yeah, and like learning what you can do, but then also figuring out what you can't do.
Yeah,
I love to make beats, but I know a whole bunch of people who make way doper
I'm the
beats
same
than
way.
me.
I don't rap over
So
my
I
own
was
beats.
Yeah, so I'm like, you know what? I stepped back from beat making a long time ago, but I find samples. So I'm always digging, I'm always listening for samples, and then I'll send samples to the producers I work with, like, yo, check this out at like 32 seconds. What do you think of this? Can we do something with it? And then like they're like, yo, yeah, give me a couple days, and then they flip something back to me. And those are like the greatest
Yeah.
moments. But that's like an area where I'm like, leave it to the professionals. But yeah, for other stuff like, yo, who's manufacturing these CDs? I can just call up this manufacturer and get the CDs made. Who's doing distro? Like back to 2006, we were talking about the iTunes thing, like around 2006 to 2010, you couldn't get on iTunes or any of that stuff without, you had to be on a label. Like
Oh,
now you can
really?
just get DistroKid or TuneCore. You could not, at least in Canada, I could not just independently, I had no
That actually
way to
does ring
get
a bell.
myself.
Because I remember I don't remember any of my friends having stuff on iTunes back then. They had plenty of albums out and stuff.
I got Burglaritis was on iTunes. So that's another thing that I got lucky about, because that was like, because of all the hands in the pot.
Yeah.
Han Solo Records, UrbNet Records, Sonic Onion, Universal. The benefit was that it got distroed through digital. So that was huge.
Yeah.
And then that sort of dictated how I did my releases. I was like, well, I got to go with these guys because they can actually get me on iTunes.
Yeah.
So,
And
and
that's
it was
something
like
too that I've
finding a
learned.
label.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is like
But now
bake the
we can all do it
promotion.
ourselves.
When you're building what you're making, you can kind of bake the promotion into it, where okay, like a lot of artists wait to the last minute and go, oh, how am I going to promote this? Oh, I'm not going to, and nobody listen to it. But when your ideas are based around this idea of something that's easy to promote or gives you promotional opportunities, that's just exactly what you should be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I went fully independent. Like I was always like independent, but it was like I needed the labels to do that for me. And then with Bandcamp really coming up, I went independent, and because that was the only site I could find where you could put something up for free, like name your
Yeah.
price. And then that model I found was huge, because the way I see it, like it was 2013 then. A lot of people, even now, like this is still true today, people aren't going to take a chance on you. If they can
Right.
listen on Spotify for free or YouTube, especially kids, why are they going to pay $15 for a digital download on Bandcamp when they don't know who you are?
Right.
But if you have a name your price on Bandcamp, even if they get it for zero and they listen to it, you might be getting a new fan for life.
Right.
And you might be, and who knows where that's going to go in the future. So I try and have a balance. Like half my stuff on Bandcamp now is name your price. Like I always keep my most recent release up for name your price. And so I think right now I have Bergonomic and Cobra Island and Spinner Rack, shameless plug. But if people are
Yeah,
listening, they can
plug all
go
you want,
download
man.
those for free. Go get them on Bandcamp right now for zero.
And
Digital
go buy
download,
some
name your
vinyl
price,
because
zero.
I
And
picked
then
up
yeah, the vinyls.
beautiful looking.
Thank you,
Like,
man. Thank you.
and
Yeah.
I could
So
tell
I mean,
you
that's the
really
thing
think about
too.
the details too, because it's like that.
Yeah.
When I looked at that, I ordered the MacGuffin
Oh
device
yeah,
LP, and like
dude.
the beautiful blue, and I was just like, oh man, I can't wait to
Thank
listen
you
to that.
so much.
Yeah.
And it opens up and you
Oh,
got all the
cool.
lyrics too.
So like
Yeah.
that's obviously that's not cheap to me. Like that are and it's are you doing all that design yourself? Are you talking to the
And
distributors yourself?
that's, I don't know if you can
That's so
see the,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, it looks better in person. I'm seeing how it's picking up on the camera, but it's like, yeah, this is the bomb. So this record, I went through, this went through Bandcamp. So Bandcamp has a vinyl, they do vinyl crowdfunders
I did
and they
not
have their,
know that.
yeah,
Shit.
so they have their own vinyl company. They worked with Kindercore, who I think are based in Georgia. They were in like Athens, Georgia. I'm not sure what plant they're dealing with now, but they made these. These came from Georgia, and they're incredible. And you work with them, and I wanted to make sure that yeah, this is the color I wanted. I wanted to get heavyweight vinyl. I don't like
Yes.
that thin vinyl. You
Me
gotta,
either.
it's gotta like, because it's gonna
Yeah.
play better. It's gonna sound better. It's gonna feel better. Um, and yeah, just doing all the little things like the way I see it, if you're going to put out physical product, you got to make it count. So yeah, having the thing that opens up with all the lyrics, this was key to
Yeah.
me, getting like dope artwork that opens up, something eye-catching. Like if I'm at a show and the merch table, got this big yellow square. It's like, yo, what's that? The blue? And it
Yeah.
looks so pretty together. So
It does.
shout
It
out
looks
Brian
gorgeous.
Sauer, my designer. Yeah. So make that physical count. And then um yeah, like I say, like for digital, I've had good luck. I mean, it's everybody's different, but I've had good luck with
It
that name
is
your price model
it is
because it
really
makes sense
interesting
to take a risk, right?
that yeah, when you say everybody's different, it is funny how some artists can like I don't know what it is, but some find ways to monetize themselves better than others. Like some do really well on one platform and not others. And so it's like it's really important to find the niche of what your audience is, how they want to, Because for me, I've become a big vinyl person. I've become that vinyl nerd who goes, it does sound better. It's it gives you that experience. I like something forcing me to get up every 15 to 20 minutes to flip a side.
Yes, man. Yes, you're interacting with, like I was
And
showing the CD. It's like I want to touch physical product. Like I
you
saw
know, like
CDs are back, and it's
is
like
it
I want a plastic circle in a plastic square.
right?
I want,
Like
I want to
ASMR,
stick it
that
in a
thing where
machine.
like certain sounds are supposed to make you feel certain ways. The sound of vinyl when the record's done, but it's still playing, actually really calms me in like a strange way. I sat here like a few weeks ago, just I must have been like 5 minutes past. I'm like, what the? I've been listening to this thing. Like
I
tip,
believe it, man. I
tip,
believe it.
tip,
It's
tip.
true.
Yeah. So, all
And
right, man. Well, I feel like I've been holding here forever.
hey, I'm having a blast, man. This
Me
is great.
too.
I mean, it's a chill Wednesday over here. Um, yeah, I guess the last to that point is just I love this stuff. Like I love vinyl.
Yes,
So I want to like make a product that I would want,
me
you
too.
know? Like I'm not gonna put my name on something that I think sucks.
I
That's
fucking hate when I just
you
see
know,
like people that just you can tell like especially back in like the early 2000s, it's like you used a low res photo for your album cover. Like I mean, it's like it's pixelated, motherfucker. Like
dude,
what?
that's such a pet peeve, like bad album art, like
It drives me nuts.
it's
It's
great. Like, oh, there's so many things that you just be like, oh, if I had the like patience to like help. But you can't even help people like that. You just like you can't even like reach out and be like, yo, your album cover is kind of weak. Like,
It's funny, like you can't judge a book by its cover, but you can
no,
certainly judge an album by its album cover. Because I'm somebody who like I will buy albums I've never heard before because I like that. I'm not a gambling person at all. I hate gambling, but I like the gamble of buying an album based on the cover and seeing if I'm gonna love it. And it's like usually
yeah,
if I'm doing like if I'm doing like a big order from like overseas, I'll throw in a couple based totally on instinct, and I've almost always been super surprised and happy. DJ Jaguar
nice.
Skills, check him out. He's amazing.
Okay,
That was
Jaguar
one of them.
skills. Dope, dope. Yeah, I
There's
gotta
one he
give.
did. He did this album where it's like it's sort of a play on the MTV Flag Moon Dude. So that's the one
Oh
I'd
yeah,
recommend. I'm so bad with the names of anything. It's just like it's that thing that's in my head that I can picture but can't translate with words.
there's a lot of
Someone
things out
burgled
there.
my words.
It happens. It happens.
Like,
But
so one other question I was thinking before. You mentioned working with the same people for years, and like hip and like that. Obviously, to me, when I hear that, it speaks to character because it's hard to do that. Like I was in a group, and it felt like being in a relationship with multiple people, and it's really hard to do. What do you attest to being able to keep these relationships for long periods of time?
yo, thank. It's true. I mean, being a solo rapper where I'm working with beat makers and like, yeah, I've been working with the same crew for over 20 years. Like Beat Mason and I, you mentioned Burglaritis, Beat Mason and I are still making stuff together, right? We were on, um, I don't know. It's just like obviously respect, appreciation for what the other is doing, like getting a good vibe. Like, I guess just right off the get-go, the people that I work with, I can think of all the first times I met them and just generally getting a good vibe and like we connected on these levels of well, this is what we're doing. And it's like, like you hear my stuff, like some people might not be into what I'm doing and like, oh, maybe this is a little weird for me or outside my box or whatever. It's like, well, but like some people get it. And then like I'm the same way with I hear beats and I'm like, yo, I love this stuff. They're like, really? Nobody else likes my stuff. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, this stuff's crazy. And I mean, I don't know, just like respect, having fun, keeping in touch, keeping in contact. Like, these people have become like my best friends over the years. It is hard. I mean, and then there's definitely you do wind up working with people every now and then, and it's like, it was good, but it's like it's too much
Yeah.
work or
Or
too
sometimes you
too
find the people that you're friends with but can't really work with. I get a few of those where it's just like every time it
yeah.
just kind of feels like oil and water, and you're just like, this isn't, let's not ruin the friendship.
Yeah, like I mean, we connect. I mean, like someone like Beat Mason who I love and like we're old friends and like we have a lot of the same like hip hop sensibilities, but we also like the same like comics and cartoons and like so we can nerd out about other
Yeah.
things and then come back together and like but if I say something I'm like, yo, remember that EPMD track that went like this, da, 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 and he's like, yo, I know that one. It's like, yeah, let's do something like he'll like get it. Like I know like I can call up Beat Mason and be like, dude, I was just listening to this AG, like you hear the new AG album, like the 2023
It's
AG album,
it's
and
so
it's like,
weird
yep,
because like for
yeah,
me, I was listening to all this stuff in a vacuum as a kid. So it was like when I remember seeing like Pump It Up on D Barnes, and I'm like, oh, someone else, like this stuff exists elsewhere. Cause it just felt like something I grew up in a
yeah,
very small town, like didn't even have cable. Like I listened to college radio and heard, hip hop and was like, holy shit.
yeah,
But like it when you can say, oh, remember that EPMD song from like, Business Never Personal,
yeah.
like and someone says yes, to me, that's like, holy shit.
Yeah,
Perfect
like
day.
that's it, right? Like you work with your people and then you make new connections and um yeah, like I've started working with people that I just randomly heard something they did. I'm like, this thing is incredible. Who is
Yeah.
this? And just shoot a random message into the ether and then they come back and they're like, yo, and you know,
It's
your
weird when
music
you
becomes
approach
your business
something.
card too.
Yeah, when
Yeah,
you approach
sorry.
something with earnestness, it's surprising, which you seem like a very earnest person. Like it's surprising how often that works out because it's like I'm sure you get messages from people that are like, "Yo, fam, like when we gonna hook up? Like, what can you do for me?" And then it's every once in a while you get something that's actually like well written and you can tell the person has a understands like how to talk to people, and you're just like it's like a breath of fresh air. Like, oh, there are normal
Man,
people out there.
yes, you should be teaching a course. I mean, that's true. A well-written Instagram message goes a long
Yeah.
way
I
as
pride
opposed to
myself on my self-awareness. I remember I once accidentally, you know who Lewis Logic is?
Sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I once I was at wherever, I forget what it's, where Sage Francis had his shows. He had a place in, I think, somewhere in Rhode Island or Connecticut or something where he'd do shows. And my friend was backing for Lewis Logic, and I had never been prescribed like lorazepam or any of that stuff before. And like my doctor gave it to me, and I took one, had a few beers, and like I remember trying to talk to Lewis Logic and being like, I know I can't get my words out. This dude definitely thinks I'm like a crackhead right now. He's just being like,
Oh
I
no.
need to back away from this conversation, but I can barely move my feet, and just feeling like mortified. I don't know how I got on that topic, but it's just
Oh man, no, I mean, yeah. I saw him do a piano show in
he's an amazing
Texas.
musician. Like
Yeah.
I saw him warm up once for a show that my friends were doing. He just sat there on the piano while the bar was closed, and he was just playing, and it was so good.
Yeah. Yeah, he came through Toronto a million years ago when I was just starting out, and he who was doing the rap stuff because was he with Demigods?
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
he yeah.
Cinematic is an amazing album. They did a whole
Yeah,
remix
yeah.
of that album, like an '80s remix. The song with him and Mac Lethal on that I friggin' love. That's
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he had some good jams, a good voice, some good rhymes.
He had that
Yeah.
song that was all racial slurs for like 4 minutes, and then you find out at the end he was like pretending to be President Bush. But it's like, because I remember that day that I was in that thing, he was playing that song and singing it, and you could tell the people in the bar were like, "What the fuck is going on?" Because he's saying just like 4 minutes of racist shit. He must have known what he was doing, but it was pretty fucking funny.
Oh, man, you're dropping some names. There's a dude, and just sort of like in your neck of the woods. I wonder if you might have crossed paths with him. Something Wombat. Does that name sound
It sounds
familiar?
familiar.
Wombaticus Rex or something?
Maybe, I don't
He's
know.
really dope, and he has a song about Laura Bush. So you just triggered, and I was like,
The one who
"Yo, is
ran
there?"
over somebody with a car. That no one ever talked about that. I think allegedly. I believe Laura
Yeah,
Bush may have
I
killed
don't
somebody with a
know.
car.
Yeah,
Allegedly.
Wombaticus Rex. He was so like I stumbled on him. I think maybe he's from Rhode Island or maybe he was from like New Hampshire. I don't know. It was like I'm not quite sure
It is
where he was
crazy
from, but he was
how many great MCs, like there is something too. My friend and I talked about this. My best friend growing up he wanted to be like a trick skier, like he was a really good skier, and I wanted to be like a rapper. And like we found that right when YouTube came out, that really made the bar of everything go up because everybody could see the other skiing tricks people were doing, and then they got so much. It was like with Tony Hawk and his whatever trick that was he did. He thought nobody could do it. Once he did it, everybody else could then do it because they saw him do it. And YouTube really, like the level of freestyle rapping and shit, like once everybody's watching these Scribble Jam things, you're like, oh, I gotta be good.
yeah.
Like, and it's crazy how much I think people don't realize how much easier it is to get better now than any other point in history. Like in the early '90s, in the '90s, it's like we were fucking with the Dewey Decimal System if we had to learn anything. It's like you couldn't go
Yeah.
to your friggin' library and get a book on Rakim. Like it's, I don't know, I'm fucking old man yelling at clouds right now, but
No, man, no, it's true. I mean, the access is insane. Like you would hear something once and you may never hear it again. Be like I'd call the college radio. It'd be like, "Yo, what was that song? What song? It was on like just like 7 minutes ago. Like, what was that song?" It's like, I don't know. It was another guy playing. He left. He took all his records. What? What? I'll never hear that song again.
I remember, like I mentioned before, on that Pump It Up show with D Barnes, I remember seeing the video for Jump by Chris Cross, and I was in like the seventh grade, and it was like 3 in the morning or whatever, and like I'd never heard of it before, and I was like, this is fucking amazing. So I started calling all the radio stations on the play it, and they had no idea what I was talking about. And there was weeks of me going, fucking Chris Cross. People at school, they're like, what are we talking about? And all of a sudden it was like, boom. And I'm like, you see?
I told you. You were there. You were there
I was there,
first.
so I don't know, but
Dope, man.
I don't know,
Dope.
man. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure. It's
Likewise. Thank you.
amazing, man. I cannot wait to get that record and listen to it a bunch more times.
Dope,
Definitely,
man.
everybody go check out Wordburglar. I mean, how can you not? So,
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, I challenge you. Go get free downloads off Bandcamp. Get Bergonomic.
yeah,
Tell me what you think. It's
and
dope.
pay for a few too. Come on,
Pay
we're all
for them
artists
too.
right here.
Yeah, but I know how it is with people. You don't want to take a risk, and then Rock Marciano goes and drops like a CD for like $500 or something.
I
It's like
know
what?
that dude
Something
too is
great.
amazing. Like he's
Yeah,
someone who
he's great.
doesn't get enough You know, he's someone too I always think about, like, I might want to do a song with him someday.
He's dope, man. Yeah, he pops up on some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great, man. We'll have to do this again because I feel like there's a lot of tangents we could just continue.
Definitely.
But yeah, and props to you. Like I'm looking forward to checking out your stuff, man, and all the, these projects you've got upcoming. Sounds dope.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'll plug myself. Quiet Life, Loud Friends out now. My new EP with copyright, wordplay, a bunch of other people. Myself and Pillsy Beats. I should at least mention my producer. Pillsy, what's up? So cool, man. It's been a pleasure.
Right on, dude. All right.
Meet Ann with wings clips, quick to flip manuscripts, cause her man went from damaged kid to damn he's rich, but she still can't stand the way he manages to never put nickels in the can for the cancer kids. Plus he cheats at cornhole and brags that he won, so she lost interest like porno after she comes. My DM started jingling, baby, as it was done. 2 seconds later I can hear the snapping of her gums. She calls me half Dodge Challenger, half Lip Gallagher. I'm happy that I luckily sat next to her in algebra. I tried to hold her down, but I just couldn't balance her between the million meetings that I keep in my calendar. Plus odds aren't too sloppy that I know why my cell is blowing up probably, but I should check just as well. Call the cops, see if I can get a hold and tell if that's copyright's yell raising hell inside the holding cell.
Smell the smoke from the cookout. The bushes in the parks with the lookout. Fresh Prince, summertime on the radio. Throwback Friday, yo, the ladies know. Then I'm a smooth type guy. Listen, I'm the shit I need 2-time ply. Part of my soul on my head sky high. The weed smoke covered my body, so I try. Put a scent on like sunblock. Summertime's body season, so keep your gun cocked. I count beers in the cooler, cause when the fun stops, that's when the arguments happen. In the gunshots, it's summertime. Backyards where we play cards. Spitting in cypher, the homie trade bars. Dominoes slam on the table, we take